Okay, everybody, what is going on? My name is Nathan or ELEMENTofFROST. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day. And yeah, I'm just back here again to bring you guys my weekly episode review video for The Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 10, Inmates. Okay, guys, so as you guys are watching this, obviously I'm uploading this on February the 17th, which is a Monday, the Monday right after the episode aired in the US and Canada. So yeah, it aired last night, February the 16th, and for those of you in the UK, I think you guys get it Friday or maybe today. I'm not really sure when you guys get it. Just make sure you watch the episode before you come back and watch this review video, because this review video will contain spoilers for this episode and previous ones before. So just, to get that out of the way for maybe anybody new coming to my channel, watching these review videos, something like that. Anyways, just wanted to let you guys know that before I get this review started. Alright guys, so I just wanted to briefly talk about the four main storylines that were basically in this episode of The Walking Dead. Okay, so for starters, Andrew Lincoln, Rick, Carl, Chandler Riggs, or Michonne Denai Guerra, they actually weren't in this episode at all. And I'm sorry if I butchered Denai's last name. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. It's kind of embarrassing. But anyway, yeah, they were not in this episode at all. Andrew Lincoln did not make an appearance. No one from the last week episode, which was Andrew Lincoln, Carl, Michonne, anybody like that, they were not in this episode. This was about all the other characters, and that made me really, really excited. On the other hand, it was a good episode. It definitely was a good episode. One of the better ones. Definitely not the best episode. I do think in order for an episode to be the best episode, Andrew Lincoln does have to be involved in it. I know it kind of sucks that, a character has to be involved in it in order to be great. But this episode was pretty damn good. I liked it actually a lot. But that's just my take on it. But anyways, yeah, Rick wasn't included in it whatsoever, and get on to the four main storylines now. These were four storylines in order from start to finish. They kind of introduced new characters. Well, not really new characters. They kind of reintroduced the old characters after the events of the prison in order, kind of like this. Okay, so start of the episode, it was actually Daryl and Beth. Okay, so I thought this was really, really cool. They're giving Beth some airtime now. Recently, Beth really got slim to none because she was always in the cell block taking care of Judith. We didn't really get to see her that much. She wasn't really out that much. The only time we actually got to see her a lot was when maybe Rick came back and handed her the baby, or some around those types of things, or when the prison was not really under attack, but when the sickness was going through the prison. We've seen Beth a little bit there, taking care of the baby, taking care of Michonne's ankle, stuff like that, but we didn't really see much. This episode, we didn't see her the entire episode, but I say the first few minutes of airtime this episode, we've seen her more than we've probably seen her in the entire season so far. So that's pretty cool. She's getting some airtime. She is kind of an interesting character, coming back from the suicide attempts and, stuff like that. So I like to see a little bit more of Beth. I think that would be kind of interesting. And, yeah, on to the person that she was actually with, which was Daryl. So Daryl now, kind of a party pooper. I don't really blame him. Obviously, he lost his prison. He's out on the road now. He doesn't really want to be, obviously. No one would want to be out on the road now. He's kind of a downer. He kind of reverted to what we seen him back in Season 2 and Season 1. Kind of that character that kind of shuts himself down, doesn't really let anybody in. But as the episode progressed a little bit, we seen him kind of develop a little bit and, kind of help out Beth, stuff like that. And, yeah, that's kind of what happened there. It really wasn't much with Daryl and Beth. Much interesting things to talk about, I should say. There's a pretty good section of the episode that was Daryl and Beth. They started off the episode. Beth was actually talking about her father, what he taught her. Kind of as the episode kind of started and was zooming in on the characters, stuff like that. Started right off the episode, and it was kind of talking about the prison, telling kind of telling us her story, and telling us what kind of Herschel had said. Uh, and she said that this morning Daddy said something. So Daddy obviously meaning Herschel. If you don't have hope, what's the point of living? Uh, you should write down wishes so that they can come true. We can live here. We can live here for the rest of our lives. And that's talking about the prison. Obviously, that's before the governor attacked. So, yeah, those are kind of words of wisdom, but it didn't really last too long, did it? Alright, guys. So, now that we're on from Daryl and Beth, since, like I said, there's not really much to talk about, we are on to the next characters now. Sorry, I had to blow something off my glasses. Couldn't really see too much. On to the next characters right now, which was actually Tyrese and Lizzie and Mika, and wait for it, Judith. That's right, guys. Judith is actually alive. I made that prediction. I definitely did make that prediction. I called it. I called it right out. Judith is alive. Tyrese does have her. And the mid-season finale, which was obviously episode 8 where the governor died. Episode 8, Too Far Gone, where the governor attacked the prison, killed Herschel, stuff like that. During that mid-season finale, we got one brief shot of Tyrese kind of running off with something in his arms. We didn't know what it was, They obviously put that in there to kind of subliminally tell us, that maybe she was alive, or that's how I at least take it. If they didn't put that shot in there of Tyrese running away, looking like he's holding something in the front, in the front of his arms, like he was holding out front of his body. If they didn't put that one little tiny shot in there, it would have been kind of weird to see Judith alive without any previous sort of evidence, before in that episode, when he ran away. That would have been considered evidence as to maybe a possible Judith, being alive. But if they didn't put that in there, Judith being alive would have been a complete shock. It would have been really, really weird. Because, we obviously seen the blood in the car seat, which now that I'm thinking about it, is actually obviously coming from Tyrese when Tyrese picked up the baby. So if you've seen Tyrese's arm last night in the episode, he was actually, I believe he was shot during the prison attack. I don't know if he was shot or maybe he cut it on something. I'm not too sure. I didn't get the full story on that. It was either or, but he was bleeding really badly from his arm, kind of like T-Dog back on the highway in season 2, episode 1. When he cut his arm on the car, he was kind of bleeding like that. Tyrese was kind of bleeding like that, and we can obviously see that, obviously Tyrese bled inside the car seat as he picked up baby Judith, and that's what Rick and Carl seen was the blood from Tyrese inside of the car seat. So, yeah, that's what happened there. Now, Tyrese actually heard some people off in the distance. This is just summing up. There was a lot more storyline with Tyrese and the children, Lizzie, Mika, and stuff like that. There was a lot more storyline, but really not much to go on to review or recap. You can watch the episode if you want all that info, but I'm just going over the gist and the basics here. Tyrese heard actually survivors or, someone trying to fight off walkers, and he figured, they might be people from the prison, so I might as well go help. So, anyways, he leaves Lizzie, Mika, kind of facing back to back, and Lizzie is actually holding Judith. Okay, and Tyrese runs off. He tries to go help them. He sees them getting attacked on the railway, and goes over there, starts helping them kill the zombies. And then we cut back to Lizzie and Mika. Now this is where it gets interesting and kind of a little bit dark. Okay, obviously babies. Obviously Judith is a baby. Obviously she cries. Now crying is not a good thing in a zombie apocalypse. Because obviously walkers can hear the crying of a baby and come towards it. You could be in danger. You can get killed. Anything could happen really in a zombie apocalypse with a crying baby. And Lizzie and Mika were kind of back to back, and Judith was crying. And the only way to get her to stop crying was to kind of put Lizzie to put her hand over Judith's mouth, but she may or may not have held it on there for a little too long. Now, as far as suffocating the baby go, she didn't do it. She was interrupted by something. We'll get into that in a second. But you could definitely see in her eyes, she was concentrated. She wasn't really listening to Mika at all. There was walkers coming towards Mika. We didn't really know what was going to happen. Mika took a shot. She missed the walker's head. She was yelling at her sister Lizzie, but she was just too distracted trying to cover the baby's mouth. And she was like pinching her nose. And honestly, I thought the baby was going to die, to be honest with you. I mean, for a minute, she wasn't letting go at all. I've seen a similar situation in the comic book where one of the twin boys actually killed this other kid, and yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking would maybe happen here, but didn't happen yet. Anyways, it cuts back to Tyrese now. Obviously, the walkers are still coming towards Lizzie and Mika. And it cuts off there. We don't really know what's going to happen. Tyrese hears the gunshot. He's still beating up the zombies. Not really beating them up, but he's still killing the zombies, trying to help them. All the survivors there got bit, so really none of them really could survive at all. And out of nowhere, we hear a familiar voice, and it's Carol. Alright, so since Season 4, Episode 4, we have not seen Carol at all. We have not seen her one little bit. So yeah, we finally see Carol. Obviously, she saved Lizzie, Mika, and Judith from the walkers that were coming towards Mika, and Mika couldn't shoot them because she's not really a good shot, or something like that. But she saved them. She is now holding baby Judith, and she yells Tyrese. The way she yells Tyrese, and she kind of looks at him, she doesn't know if he knows that she's the one that killed Karen and David. Alright, so obviously you guys know at the start of Season 4, Carol is the one who killed Karen and David to try to keep the infection from spreading. And that's why she got sent off by Rick. But she doesn't know that Tyrese doesn't know, so she's kind of iffy about going towards him, stuff like that. And then she finally finds out that Tyrese doesn't know because he starts hugging her, and just so glad that she's alive, and they kind of go on their way. Now, as far as this guy on the railway, there's only one guy left. He pretty much states that he shouldn't have went into the woods. The walkers followed him out of the woods and onto the railway tracks, and basically states, if you follow the railway, if you follow the tracks, it will lead you to Sanctuary, or Terminus. And we see that a little later on. But right now, we're going to go on to the next group of people, which was actually Maggie, Sasha, and Bob. Alright, so this was an interesting storyline. I kind of like this a lot. Now, Maggie, Sasha, and Bob, we kind of seen them kind of grouped up together, kind of like on maybe a creek bed, something like that. And we actually seen them group up together, and they were about to post up camp, and Maggie basically said, Glenn was on the prison bus when I left. I'm going to go find the prison bus. They went down the left side of the highway. They went down this certain path. I'm going to follow that until I find the prison bus, until I find where they went. Maybe I can pick up their tracks. Because she wants to find Glenn, obviously her husband, and that's what's kind of going on there. So they start following Maggie, and they come across a prison bus. Obviously the same prison bus that Glenn was actually in, and they looked in the windows, and everybody was a walker. Now, does this mean Glenn is a walker? Absolutely not. Basically, she found this out by going into the prison bus at the back, letting them out kind of one at a time, and then kind of a herd of them out at the same time, because they kind of pushed against the door. They couldn't really hold it back or anything like that. And they basically killed their way through the walkers to see if Glenn was in there, and he wasn't. So that's kind of where Maggie's storyline ended. There was a lot more in between dialogue. There's a lot more in between walking, surviving. There was a hell of a lot more zombie killing in that one scene than we kind of seen from anybody else, if you guys know what I mean. Because Maggie, Sasha, and Bob, they obviously cleared out the entire prison bus, and she just wanted to learn if Glenn was in there. Even if he was in there, she wanted some closure that he was dead, and maybe that he didn't get away. or anything like that. That would have been pretty bad not knowing what happened. Maybe he was in there, maybe he wasn't. If he was in there, you would obviously stop looking in there. You would obviously stop looking, period, I guess. But if you didn't look in there and he was alive and you just assumed he was dead, that would have been pretty bad. So you kind of need some sort of closure towards that kind of thing. Anyways, now moving on to the last and final section or group of this episode, which was Glenn and Tara, actually. So we'll get into Tara here in a second, but it starts off the episode kind of Glenn hanging off the catwalk of the prison. The catwalk's destroyed, it's blown in half because of the tank. And he's hanging off the catwalk of the prison. He kind of wakes up and pulls his gun up because it's hanging off his arm down towards the zombies. All the zombies are down there, kind of, grambling and kind of trying to grab at him. He's too far up, so he gets his gun, he gets up, he goes inside the prison, he goes into his cell block, and I just loved this point where he goes into the cell block and he just sees, it's a complete silent moment of no one at all being there in his cell block. This obviously means, that everybody has left the prison. Nobody is there except for him now. So, he's kind of there in his cell block, and he kind of is like, we had all this, and now it's all gone. There's nothing we can do to do it, and, anything like that. So, it kind of sucks, that Glenn is kind of there on his own, but he pulls it together. He definitely pulls it together. He sees, he's kind of, I believe, in my opinion, he's kind of ready to give up. He goes into his cell and kind of lays down on his bed, and he looks over and sees the picture of Maggie that he took up in that cell tower. Not really, guard tower, I guess, not cell tower. He went up in the cell tower, obviously, with Maggie and took that picture while she was asleep, and he kept that picture. And he kind of looked at that picture and kind of reminded him of what he needs to do, and that is find Maggie. So he gets riot gear out from under his bed. He gets a bunch of stuff together. He gets his weapon, his machete, his knife, everything that he needs to survive. He puts on the riot gear and he heads outside into a horde of walkers, just kind of swarming. But he has the riot gear on, so they can't really bite him, scratch him, anything like that because of the riot gear. But he does kind of look to get trampled on at one point, and he kind of fights out of that, and he's about to head for the prison gate so he can get the hell out of there. When he sees Tara actually sitting inside kind of a caged-in area of the place. This caged-in area is the same caged-in area where we've seen Rick actually walking out and kind of down the staircase. At the start of Season 4, the very, very start of Season 4, when he went down the staircase, splashed his face with water and went to go farming. We see her kind of there, caged in. And Glenn decides at first to leave her there, but then decides that in order to get out of the prison, in order to survive, in order to find Maggie, I'm still weak because I'm still sick and I need her help. So he goes back, he clears out a few walkers in front of the gate, he opens up the gate, he takes her gun, he checks actually if the chamber and if the clip is fully loaded, and he basically asks her, "You didn't fire a shot?" And she basically states, "No, I didn't. I wasn't supposed to be here." She's kind of feeling sorry for herself and stuff like that. And they kind of make their way out of there then. She's ready to give up because she knows what she did. She's kind of looking around the prison. This was only a couple hours after the attack, by the way. She's kind of looking around the prison. She's kind of like, I sided with the governor. I sided with Brian, and this is what I caused. Obviously distress for everybody at the prison. Everything like that. She's kind of looking at it like the way she caused it. And, since she didn't fire a shot, I don't really blame her for anything that happened. Obviously, she trusted the governor. She thought he was a good man. I guess Brian, not really the governor. But anyways, Glenn talks her out of it. He's just like, "You're just going to sit here. You're just going to die." And he basically states that he needs her help. And they get on their way. So they open up the gate. Glenn and Tara actually kind of shoot their way, knife their way out of there. They actually break out of the prison. They get out of the prison, and now they're kind of on the road now. They're sort of on the road, and what happens next is absolutely shocking. Okay, so we all kind of knew that new characters were actually going to be introduced sometime during this season because they were cast for season 4. And this just makes me that much more excited to finally meet them. All right, so Glenn and Tara kind of on the road, and they see walkers up ahead, and Glenn finally learns that Herschel has died. Up to then, he actually didn't know. During the prison attack, during the prison fight, Glenn was still in his cell block because he was still sick from that horrible, not really cold, but I guess sickness, virus, something like that. He was obviously still sick from that. He couldn't really fight. He couldn't really get up and do anything. He was obviously still sick from that. He was in the cell block while all the prison fight was going down, so he didn't see Herschel get his head cut off by the governor. He didn't see that at all. And this is when he finally realizes that he has to be there for Maggie. He has to find her now. There's no waiting around. He has to find Maggie now to be there for her. Tara basically states that, I trusted the governor, and then he cut that old man's head off. He killed that old man. And Glenn asked her, was that old man? The old man, was his name Herschel? And she obviously stated yes. She nodded her head, and that's when he realizes that he has to be there for Maggie now, and he basically tells her, let's get going. I still need your help. We got to do this, and he's kind of angry. We can kind of see him kind of want to get revenge on the governor, but obviously the governor's kind of dead now, so he does the next best thing. He goes and attacks walkers. The walkers come out of the forest. He goes and attacks them, puts a knife through one of their heads, a knife through one of the others. Then Tara comes up, helps them with one. They take down one more walker. Then Glenn actually passes out. I'm not really sure what happened to Glenn. I think he passed out because, the riot gear, obviously we can assume the riot gear is hot as shit. It's black, it's armored, everything like that. It's hot as shit, and it's Atlanta, Georgia, so, it's going to be pretty damn hot. Anyway, he passed out, obviously probably from the sickness as well that he previously had. He probably still has a touch of it, something like that. And, he passed out, and then Tara was kind of standing over him, shaking him, kind of, saying, Glenn, wake up, stuff like that. And we actually see a walker come into the forest and attack Tara, and Tara actually manages to, hit it with the butt of Glenn's gun and keep smashing it and smashing it and smashing it and smashing it. And then we hear a truck roaring. You know how you hear the truck running sometimes. Not really when you start it up, but kind of when it's just sit there and idle. It's just like like that. I don't know how good my truck noise is, but that's what we heard. And she kind of looks up at the camera, not really at the camera, but kind of like up and left to it, and basically states to people, I hope you enjoyed the show, assholes, which I thought was really, really cool. And the camera panned over to new characters that were already in the comic book, and they just introduced them in the TV show, which was Abraham Ford, Eugene, and Rosita. So we didn't really get to see much of them, obviously. We just seen the very, very end of it, and those characters were introduced. And he basically states to Terry, you got a real potty mouth. Coming from a guy in the comic book who always says fuck. But anyways, yeah, Sergeant Abraham Ford is now in the TV show, which makes me really, really excited. He was a really big character in the comic book, and I cannot wait to see what Michael Cudlitz does for him in the TV show. It's going to be really, really cool. I cannot wait until next episode. Anyways, there are trailers and, sneak peeks for next episode. I'm going to leave them in the description of the prediction video coming this Thursday. I'm not going to leave them now. You guys can go check them out on YouTube right now if you guys want to. But that's basically it for the review video, my episode review video of The Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 10. No, not Claimed. Claimed's the next one. Season 4, Episode 10, Inmates. So yes, the next episode is actually The Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 11, Claimed, and I cannot wait for this one, guys. We can see in the sneak peeks for next week's episode, Rick is back. You know, we can see Michonne, Rick. We can see a little bit of Abraham Ford. You know, kind of talking about he's a sergeant. Maybe he meets up with some of the group. You know, stuff like that. But anyways, I am so excited for next week's episode. It's unreal. Just because of Abraham Ford. I cannot wait to see what Michael Cudlitz and everybody brings to the table portraying Abraham Ford, Rosita, and Eugene. It's a great storyline coming up if they keep to it. So I cannot wait for that, guys. And I'm still wondering if all the group's going to get back together. You know, they're going to meet up somewhere. I mean, you'd think they have like a contingency plan or what do you call it? A place where you meet up. I forget what you call it. It starts with an R. Rendezvous. Yeah, that's it. Nailed it. Okay, guys. Well, that's basically it for this episode review video of The Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 10, Inmates. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the episode as much as I did. I loved it so much. It was definitely one of the most interesting episodes of the season so far. Basically because we get to see everybody other than Rick and how The Walking Dead would fare without Rick inside of an episode. So yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, hit it up with a like, share it around with your friends if you did enjoy it, and I will talk to you guys on the predictions video this Thursday, which is February the 20th? Yeah, February the 20th. I will see you guys then for the episode prediction video of The Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 11, Claimed. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the next video, guys. Alright, guys.